Paul, we're in your backyard. So this is the second outdoor episode that I've done. You haven't heard the episode, or you weren't at the episode that Mike and I recorded a few weeks ago. But we're in your backyard. We're feeling a bit like we're getting through the eye of the storm, I guess, on COVID. And, or wait, does eye of the storm mean that you're going to have more storm ahead? Or is eye of the storm a good thing?
I think, I don't know. That's a great question. I think, no, I
light at the end of the tunnel.
Light at the end of the tunnel, yes. Because eye of the storm means that you have a temporary reprieve, but you are in the middle of the worst of it. So I really hope that we are not in that situation with COVID.
God, yeah. That's right. They say eye of the storm when it's when you think you're getting through it, and then
let's
got more to come.
Let's try to be positive here.
Okay. And we said this was going to be a COVID-free episode, so officially that's the last time we're going to mention COVID.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you're right. This is, it's a first for me being out here, first of all, in my backyard, which is pretty cool in itself. And for us to be doing this face-to-face. We've been doing these podcasts now for over a year now. And
this is our first face-to-face.
This is a face-to-face podcast. This is live. Anything can happen in a live performance, right? So if you hear like screaming kids or animals or cars in the background,
birds,
you can hear chirping birds, wind.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't get anything weird going on.
Well, you never know, and that's cool. Live radio that happens to be recorded.
Yeah.
But all right, we have a few topics. We want to talk today about asking for a father's blessing. This is a tradition for marriage. This is a tradition that has been around for a long time, where the husband-to-be goes and visits the wife-to-be's father and asks for the blessing of the fact that the guy is going to marry his daughter and he wants to get her father's blessing. Is this a outdated tradition? Is this, some might go so far as to say it's sexist and chauvinist? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're also going to talk about the homeless, and whether or not we've engaged before with homeless people. And what I mean by that is it's very common that we'll see homeless people and it's easy to just, assume things and keep walking by. And I'll share an experience I had today with a homeless person. Then we're going to share some updated Who Fucking Cares news, which we both have a couple we're going to put out. And then I think we're just going to see how it goes. I don't think this is going to be a long episode. Yeah,
I think this is just a good conversational episode. As mentioned, we're live here. We have beer in hand. I should point that out, is that we have our beer, and we should take a photo.
Oh yeah. So this episode is brought to you by Amsterdam Blonde Lager.
Yeah.
Amsterdam Lager, established in 1986, brewed fresh daily using natural ingredients for a clean, crisp taste with a smooth, mellow finish. Amsterdam Blonde Lager.
No, but it's nice to be here. It's kind of a more laid-back episode.
It feels different.
Yeah, this is cool.
Because there's no Zoom and all that technological stuff, so it's really easier to just kind of lay it back.
Yeah,
all right, but let's not be boring, though, right?
No, for sure.
We can't rest on our laurels.
No. We've got to keep our fans happy, right?
All right, I'm going to kick it right off with the wedding, the asking for the father's hand in marriage. I explained at the top there, what the tradition is. Let me ask you, you're married, we're both married. Did you ask for your wife's hand in marriage? Like for your father-in-law, did you go beforehand and ask for his blessing?
The quick answer to that is no, I didn't. It's interesting that you, I guess, proposed this topic. No pun intended. Yeah, it's interesting.
Why is it interesting? Because it's come up recently, or you've been
it's made me think about my own experiences. And my wife has often asked me in the past, how come you didn't ask my dad for my hand in marriage? And my answer to that is I don't know. I don't really know why I didn't ask him if I could have his daughter's hand in marriage.
Well,
Not that I was
think
concerned.
of it, though? Or you just
No,
didn't?
I didn't really occur to me.
Okay. So the why you didn't could just be that you didn't think of it.
I just didn't really think of it, I guess. I knew of the tradition.
You didn't watch enough Little House on the Prairie episodes, obviously.
Yeah, I don't get too caught up in a lot of traditions.
I'm going to challenge you on that.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Christmas lights.
True.
Five houses in a row didn't have Christmas lights.
No, that's true, yeah. So what I meant to say is that, yes, there are certain traditions out there that, yes, some I follow, but others not so much.
You went on in that Christmas episode about how much of a traditionalist you were. So maybe in Christmas...
You've caught me. Yeah, maybe at Christmas time, but...
Christmas is a sacred time.
When it comes to proposals, hopefully it's only once in my life that I have to do that.
Yeah, no do-overs, hopefully.
Yeah, no do-overs, yeah.
All right, so tell me, so your wife's actually raised this issue?
No, she has, yeah. She actually did ask... She has asked me that question a couple of times. How come you never asked my dad's hand?
Is that why when I said maybe we can bring your wife on, you sort of got a little squirmy?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, if I see her, I might invite her on.
But I don't know why I didn't ask. And I'm racking my brains, and it was a long time ago. We're talking...
But if you weren't aware of it...
Well over 15 years ago.
Paul, if you weren't aware of it, then that would be a very easy reason to know why.
Yeah, and I guess that would be my defense, I suppose, is the fact that, to me, it didn't really... I didn't think it was that big of a deal. In my wife's eyes, I guess it was. I think she probably would have liked me to have asked him for the hand in marriage. Not that I ever worried that he would say no. But to some people, yeah, I guess that is a nice tradition that they honor. However, it's one of those things where you don't want to overthink it too much. And you've mentioned in your introduction there that there are some people that view it as an outdated chauvinist tradition.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really view it that way. I guess my feelings on it is that I would be indifferent on it. If I had a daughter, my question would be to myself, would I want my future son-in-law asking me if he could marry my daughter?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I would want that or not. Or if I would place a lot of importance. Probably not. Would it be nice if somebody did ask? I suppose so.
Well, I think it's important to discern between permission versus blessing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I think when people get upset about this, it's usually because it's seen as a permission thing. Like, my father doesn't own me. There's no permission involved.
Yeah, because ultimately, even if the father says no, it shouldn't affect your decision to want to marry.
It may affect your marriage.
Yeah, it could affect your marriage, depending on what kind of family dynamics are going on there. But it's hard for me to answer that question because I don't have a daughter, whereas you do. So then I'm going to flip this question back to you. With your daughter in X number of years down the road, when she one day gets married, would you want her partner to ask for your permission or ask for your blessing? Like, what do you think on this?
Well, I would say that I would think that would be a very cool gesture. That if it's seen as almost like a heads up and a blessing. I'm a bit of a traditionalist in some areas, and this is one, like, from my personal experience, I did ask for my I went to my father-in-law and set up we went for lunch, and I called him, and I'm going to get back to the daughter thing in a sec, but just my personal experience with this was I was at work. I think we were about 2 weeks away from taking our trip that was going to be the trip that I was going to propose. So time was ticking. I had a few chances where I was going to mention it. He was barbecuing in the back, and he was by himself, and I looked out, I saw him, and I thought, oh, maybe I should go out there and do it now. And then I chickened out, and then I left it to the last minute. So I ended up calling him from work and saying, can we meet tomorrow for lunch. And I almost sensed a hesitation in his voice, as though he sort of knew what it might be about.
Was he suspicious, do you think?
Well, I think he knew what it was, that what he knew where it was going. So took him out to lunch, and yeah, I told him. I just said, so I'm I'm very much in love with your daughter, and I'm planning to propose. And he said, well, I don't even remember. You know what? A lot of it's almost like a blur. That I remember the restaurant, and that's all. Like, I remember where we went, but I don't remember what he said, other than that I know he said yes. So it was a bit of a blur when I look back on it.
So you did get the blessing. So that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Well, that's another thing too. What if you don't get the blessing?
Yeah, that would be unusual. And however, it depends on the family dynamic. Some families obviously can be very complicated. Depends on if there's a strained relationship. I think if you had a strained relationship with your future in-laws, you probably wouldn't be asking for their blessing. You would just do what you need to do, what you want to do.
Or if she has a strange relationship with her parents.
Well, that's the other thing too. If your future bride is not close to her father or does not have that kind of relationship with her dad, then no, I think it would sort of be a moot point to be asking, because it really doesn't matter. I think in my wife's case, it did matter because she was very close to her dad. So I think in her mind, she would have appreciated me asking him. So if I could turn back the clock, if I could change that, I would obviously have asked, because I think that would have been a nice gesture. But at the time, I just didn't think about it. Simple as that. I guess that's really my only defense I have to say about that. And unfortunately, that's what's done is done.
Do you think this is going to come up again between you and your wife, or does she?
Well, after she hears this podcast, it certainly will.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever talk to him about it after? Like, say, I didn't ask you, or I didn't, like, did that ever come up with him?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Did he ever come to you and say, hey,
no,
look,
I don't think
I'm not
so.
really for this, and I really wish you'd asked me.
Yeah. No, there's none of that. No, I know he approved, but no, I don't remember. I don't think it was discussed. It may have been, but it was quite a while ago that I would forget what the details of the conversation was. But yeah, I've been married over 15 years now, so we're talking about 17 years ago, I suppose. But yeah, it's proposing. It's a cool time in your life. And when I proposed to my wife, I did it when we were on vacation down in Florida. And yeah, you worry, and you want to make sure everything is right and the timing is perfect. You want to do it somewhere unique or different, somewhere memorable.
Yeah.
So yeah, proposing, it's a cool thing.
When I proposed to my wife, we went to Europe. We went to the Czech Republic and to Vienna. I think it was a 10-day trip. And I remember I think we were in Prague for the first 6 days, and then Vienna for the last 4. And I spent the first 6 days just constantly scouting locations. And I had the ring with me everywhere we went, because I was worried that we would find or stumble across the perfect place. And if I didn't have the ring with me, what was I going to do? So what ended up happening was, the last day we were in Prague, we ended up going up to Prague Castle, which has this beautiful view. It's a beautiful castle, but it overlooks the entire city. And I didn't bring the ring with me of that one day. And I said, this is the place, and we have to come back here. Now, it was the last day of the trip, so I had to figure out some way to get us back to, because, why come back? You've already been here. So what I said was, wouldn't this be beautiful at night to see it? So we went on a river cruise, and then I said, hey, let's go back up to Prague Castle and see what the view of the city looks like at night. So fortunately, I had the ring with me when we came back, and that's where I did it.
You had to wait to the very last day of the trip then, huh?
Yeah, well, then I started saying, well, you know what, maybe I'll wait till Vienna. And then, but the thing is that Prague is where my mother is from, or she's from the Czech Republic. So there was also a bit of a connection for that I wanted to tie it in with the family history, that this was my mother's home country. And I'll share one more thing about this, is that when we got back so my mother came with us on this trip. It was the three of us. We were in like a 2-bedroom flat. And when we got back, we shared the news with her. And I still remember what my mother said. She smiled and she's like, Clark, I never thought you were the marrying kind. Or no, she said, I was a little bit worried that maybe you weren't the marrying kind.
Yeah.
So she was pretty happy about that. But yeah, and then back to my daughter. I think it would be a nice gesture. I think it just tees up the relationship with the future son-in-law and the father, that it's a nice gesture. Now, if you already have a really solid relationship and it's pretty close, maybe it's not maybe you don't need it, but I think it just tees it up. And it's not, to me, about permission at all. It's a blessing more than anything, and a bit of a heads up. And one other thing is, some might say, well, why are you asking the father? Why don't you ask both parents for permission or blessing? Pardon me. And I think that's a fairly good point.
That's a good question, especially, well, it depends on the type of relationship that your fiance has with her parents. She may not have a close relationship with her father, in which case it really doesn't matter or doesn't have as much significance. But if she is very close to her mother, then perhaps the mother is the person that you should be asking or at least having that conversation with. So yeah, it is maybe a little bit of an outdated tradition to say, oh, you have to ask the father's permission for the hand in marriage. To use the word permission, I think is not the right word. That in itself would be very outdated to quote unquote ask permission.
And going back, that could have to do things like the dowries and things like that.
Yeah, and I'm sure there is.
Where there's money involved, a transaction. It was actually, in the old days, a lot of it was just about pomp and ceremony and about money, not so much about like love. So.
Yeah, for sure. It wasn't, this is a whole different topic in itself in terms of the historical meanings of marriage. These days, people obviously marry the person that they love, and they marry because
most of the time
they marry who they want to marry, but
that will vary on culture too.
Yes, very, very much so. But 100 years ago, you very much married amongst your class structure, amongst certain families. There was a point where you probably did literally have to ask permission to marry into a particular family.
This episode is brought to you by Pace Painting. Pace Painting, serving all your painting needs, whether commercial or residential. Reach Pace Painting at paintwithpace@gmail.com or via their Facebook page, Pace Painting Inc. Or call Peter at 289-356-7744. Paint with Pace. Okay, I want to share a story that happened to me today. I met with a friend of mine, a running pal, and we met near his office, and we went for a coffee and took the coffees out to go. And there was a homeless person who was lying in front of one of the storefronts. And, I started meandering to kind of cross the street to avoid this guy. And the friend I was with, he said, "Oh, hey, Wayne, how's it going?" And I was a bit taken aback, like, "Oh, you know this guy?" And they proceeded to have a conversation for a couple minutes. And he was actually a pretty articulate guy. Like, you could tell he was, I guess he looked like he was in a kind of rough shape. Like he looked like someone that had been on the street for a while. He had no shoes on. His shoes were actually off to the side. And my friend had a conversation with him about shoes and buying shoes and about where he was going to stay. I think the guy asked him about whether he had found him a place to live or something like that. And I think what it was is my friend Marcelo, he's very close to the church, And I think that churches often will try to find homes for people. So I think there was something there. But the reason I bring this up, first of all, what's your reaction when you see a homeless person? Like, do you cross the street, or have you ever engaged in a conversation with a homeless person? And what was that experience like?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the short response to that is my reaction would likely be the same as you, where my natural instinct would be probably to try to avoid that person, by way of either avoiding eye contact or maybe crossing the street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when it comes to homeless people, yeah, we probably do jump to conclusions very quickly. We probably judge them probably much harsher than what we should.
Like we think, are they, they're lazy.
We automatically, think that they're a bunch of bums, or they're dangerous, or they're on drugs or something. There. Yeah.
It's their choice.
There's a lot of obviously negative connotations surrounding homeless people. And I will admit I am very guilty of feeding into those stereotypes. If I see a homeless person, no, I don't interact with them. And usually I'll just kind of walk past. And part of that, I suppose, is because I used to work downtown Toronto, and I did so for well over 10 years. Certain parts of Toronto, depending where my office was, actually the job that I had prior to the one that I hold now, the location of the office was in kind of I wouldn't say a rough area, but yeah, I guess so. I guess you could say kind of a sketchier part of Toronto. It was, just trying to think of the intersection. Yeah, like Dundas and Mutual Street area. It was a part of Toronto where there's a lot of homelessness.
Is that Parkdale?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Either way, it's a part of Toronto where, yes, there is a lot of homelessness, and there's a lot of people that have mental health issues. So therefore, yes, there are obviously some dangerous people out there. And I suppose that my view, or my overall opinion of homelessness has been probably shaped by the fact that I have worked downtown for many years and have witnessed a lot of homeless people in and around the city, and obviously being in certain parts of the city where there's a higher percentage of homeless people and they're much more prevalent. It just has created sort of a negative image or a negative idea in my mind as to how I would view a homeless person. For me to go up to a homeless person and engage them and say, "Hey, how you doing?" That would definitely, I'll admit, that would be out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand your reaction when you saw your friend interact with a homeless person. You're like, "Huh? What's going on here?"
I was actually impressed. I
well.
really respected him for that.
It takes a bit of courage to go up to a homeless person and say, "Hey, how's it going?" or just to have a conversation. And you're right. Maybe that's something we should be doing. Maybe it would allow us to understand their situation a little bit more, and to not be so quick to judge people on their appearances or their predicament, because we don't know the story behind these people. There is obviously, yes, a large number of homeless people that are there because of mental health issues or substance abuse. But ultimately, there are probably a lot of good people out there on the streets that are just hit rock bottom or just had a lot of bad luck, whatever it might be.
But you could have that from substance abuse too, though.
No, exactly. And just because people are substance abusers doesn't mean they're bad people. They just mean that they have an illness that has unfortunately sort of overtaken their life, and has prevented them from being able to hold down a job or have a family, whatever it might be. Anyway, that's a whole different topic in itself. But yeah, the point being is that, as I said, we are quick to judge homeless people.
So Wayne, the homeless guy from today, the bit of the background on him was apparently he was a lawyer, and he had a wife who passed away from an illness quite a number of years ago. Apparently he's been homeless for 30 years, this guy. And he also had a child pass away. So he went through some really tough times. And some of the things that Marcelo told me was that he will always take his shoes off and place them off to the side wherever he sits. So there's something there about that. Marcelo bought him a slice of pizza once, and he gave it to him. And the guy said, Wayne said to him, "This is going to seem really weird, but I have to do this before I can eat it." He threw the pizza on the ground, and then he picked it up and ate it.
Okay, that's weird.
So maybe for whatever reason he felt maybe he wasn't worthy of eating a pizza that hadn't been, found somewhere, so we don't know what that's all about. But I thought there's obviously a lot going on there. And I think that it's the whole human compassion thing, right? And I think how we grow up, I grew up in a pretty, middle class, upper middle class family, but my father came from nothing. Like his father died at a young age, and all of his siblings supported his mother. He came from a family of 7 children. And my father, when we were growing up, would always use that as kind of, he wasn't a big fan of the homeless and the begging situation. So he would say things to me like, there was never a homeless problem before food banks. Like, as though these support systems suddenly enabled people and made them decide to become homeless or not work. And so I grew up with a lot of that kind of that thinking going on. And it was hard to argue with my dad because he was, he did come from nothing and made his own way in life. He never got handouts from anybody. However, he still had a loving family and support structure like that. In a way, he was one of the luckiest people out there because he had siblings and his mother, that it was a strong family. They just didn't have a lot of money. So it's just interesting how these things shape our opinions.
Yeah. And, when it comes to the homeless issue, and again, this is a topic that we can debate for a while. And this could be a topic that we could pursue in more detail.
All of our topics are topics within topics.
Yeah, absolutely. But with everything going on with COVID, and I said we weren't going to discuss COVID, but here we go. Yes, there is obviously a more visible presence of homeless people in the city, for sure. I haven't
been down there, is there?
There is, yeah. I haven't spent a lot of time in Toronto ever since the pandemic, but the times that I have spent or driving through the city on my way to client meetings or whatever, in a lot of the public parks, there is now homeless camp establishments. And it's becoming a bit of a problem in the sense that a lot of community parkland has been taken up by homeless encampments.
Well, we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, and we have sort of touched on this topic in prior episodes, and it begs the question about the whole, drug use and does it promote crime? Does it create unsafe areas where people with families don't feel safe going to public parks? And again, we don't want to try to jump into that situation or that topic in this particular discussion. However, yeah, I guess what we're trying to say here is that every homeless person has a story, and one has to be compassionate to what they have gone through. But ultimately, yes, there is a lot of negative opinions about homeless people because of the fact that I guess we are seeing these homeless encampments. People associate them with high crime areas.
Sometimes homeless people can be very aggressive.
Yeah. Well, in certain parts of Toronto, there is a lot of
they start screaming at people that are not sure what's going on.
Yeah, mentally unstable. And I guess that is the reason why a lot of people steer clear of homeless people, because you don't know what you're going to get. You could get, a sweet, gentle, kind person that is just being unfortunate, hard on their luck, and they find themselves on the streets. Or you could find someone who's very mentally unstable and they are very dangerous people, and there's a reason why they are living on the streets, is because they can't assimilate within, I guess, society in general. So yeah, this is so many different angles and so many different ways to look at this. And I suppose on our end, we should maybe research this a little bit more as to, if we want to pursue this whole homelessness topic in further detail. But
maybe we go and find Wayne and see if he'd be willing to share some of his
that would be interesting.
We do say that we're gonna follow up and interview all these people, and we never do.
Yeah.
But maybe Wayne is somebody that he sounded like a pretty articulate guy, I have to say, and if he was agreeable to talking, then maybe he would be someone we could talk to. So I mean, some of the takeaways I get from this are, it's easy to make assumptions about people. It's easy to jump to conclusions, and quite often at the heart of this is mental illness. And that's something that fortunately has been getting a lot more airplay lately, that mental health and the challenges that befall people are ones that we need to treat people with compassion. And I think this is a great example of that. And who knows, the kind of interesting stories that you will learn about a person by just simply saying hi and maybe even getting to know them a little bit. All right, I saw on the list there you had tipping down. We were going to talk about tipping. Do we have time for that?
Yeah, I think so. We can touch on this.
Okay, so tipping, what's the reason you want to bring tipping to the top table today?
Well, the reason why I wanted to bring out tipping is because...
You're answering that like an elementary. Mrs. Wilson, yeah. The reason why... Okay, so why are you bringing tipping to the table?
Well, it's because a couple of weeks ago I was in a Subway restaurant. Just a fast food restaurant, just getting my sandwich. And I went to pay with my debit card. And on the debit register or machine, it provided an option for tip, which I thought was very unusual. I've never seen that before for a fast food restaurant.
I've seen that before.
And the tipping options were 15%, 18%, 21%. I'm thinking, first of all...
Was zero an option?
Yeah. And first of all, since when are we supposed to tip for a fast food service? And secondly, why am I tipping 18%? Why is this even an option? In my humble opinion, I think it's getting a bit ridiculous in terms of the expectations that are placed on tipping. So let me just begin by saying I'm not a cheap person. I absolutely tip whenever I go to a restaurant. I always tip 15% because I realize that servers do get paid less money, and they truly do deserve and rely on those tips.
In Canada and the United
income.
States they do, but in parts of Europe, they're paid actually much better, but they're not usually tipped.
Yeah.
Like in Asia, for example, there's no tipping. In Japan, if you left a tip, they'd be chasing after you to give you your money back.
Yeah, and I recall you telling me that, and I wonder, what is the best system? Is it better to pay a little bit more and have that included within the price? Or should it be our discretion to choose if we tip or not? I'd say 99% of the time when I go to a restaurant, I get good to excellent service. But once in a while, you do get lousy service. I have been to some restaurants where you get a terrible waiter or waitress, and there has been a rare occasion when I have refused to tip because I thought this person was absolutely terrible. And yeah, I should have that decision or that right to be able to say, no, you don't deserve a tip. I'm not going to provide that to you.
So you would leave zero if you were really, really upset?
Absolutely. If someone, I can think of one incident a couple of years ago where a waiter was just absolutely terrible. He was slow with service, very unattentive. He was talking to his friends most of the time. You had to literally chase him down. It's just absolutely terrible, terrible service. And I made a point of having no tip whatsoever. I refused to tip. And I even called the manager over, I said to the manager, we've received terrible terrible service.
Well, I think that's good that you did that.
Well, yeah, you have to call it out. Otherwise, if you don't say anything or just say, oh, well, just give him his 10% or 15%, then he'll carry on thinking that what he's done is perfectly fine.
Now, granted, I worked in a restaurant, so in a lot of cases, some of the things that happen in a restaurant are out of the waiter's control or the server's control. You know, like food delays and things.
Oh, I know, and I don't.
The friend talking thing, like that's definitely annoying.
I don't blame a waiter for the food. That's not their fault. I don't blame them for anything that goes wrong in the kitchen. But when a server is deliberately unattentive, you know, is distracted by talking to their buddies who are sitting at the table over next to you, someone that just doesn't really care, then that's very prevalent. Or if they have a bad attitude. But as I said, that is very rare. 99% of the time when you go to a restaurant, you're going to get good service. At least I found in my experiences here in Canada and in the US. But anyway, just sort of going back to the original intent of the topic was the fact that, I just find that when it comes to certain services, like you see tipping encroaching more and more. And it's very much a North American thing where, you know, you go to a bar or like a sporting event and you order a couple of beers. It's sort of expected that you would tip for a beer. Yeah. But if you go to the fast food counter and get a popcorn and a soda, you're not going to necessarily, you're not really going to tip for that. Mm-hmm. At least I don't usually.
Well, what's the difference?
Well, yeah, exactly. What is the difference? Why is certain things you are expected to tip, whereas other things you're not?
Right.
And I just find that the things that tipping is encroaching more and more upon all sorts of different things.
So, but wait, based on what you just said, if it's seemingly, you know, mostly applied to alcohol-based transactions, then in a way, it sounds like you're actually, on one hand, promoting that it should be included for non-alcohol transactions, but at the same time, you're complaining because it's starting to bleed into other areas, like the subway you went into.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that we shouldn't necessarily have to tip when it comes to fast food outlets. And
but
quite frankly, for alcohol, why should we tip? How is serving a beer any different from giving me a can of Coke?
I agree. Yeah.
So, but I guess we all kind of feed into the expectation that, oh, someone served me a beer, I guess I'll tip him some money. But yeah, you're right. When we think about it, we really shouldn't have to tip when it comes to serving alcohol.
Well, this is why I liked it in Asia, because when I was in Singapore, I remember we pulled into the hotel. It was an off-site. We were in Singapore, and we dropped when I got out of the taxi, I had my bag, and the bellman or whatever you call him runs up and he says, "Oh, sir, let me take that for you." Well, in North America, you're taught to tell those people no, right? Because what it meant was they would take it up to your room for you and you had to pay them $5 or $10 or whatever as a tip. But in Singapore or in other parts of Asia, like Japan, tipping is not part of the culture. So what it made me feel like this guy's actually asking to take my bag because he wants to provide a service of which he's not expecting some compensation for. He's getting that compensation through his place of employment. Mm-hmm. What I've seen in hotels, say in New York City, is they have these sometimes fairly aggressive valets or bellmen that stand outside the hotels that are pretty much working on tips. Like the staff, the hotel has just said, yeah, you work here. They probably pay them dirt wages or hardly anything. And all the money they make is going to be on tips. So what that does is foster an environment of, for instance, if they assess somebody as maybe they're not going to get a tip from them, or if they've done something and they didn't get tipped, they're just going to not ask them again. They'll see them maybe throughout the duration of the stay and ignore them. Meanwhile, you've paid to be at that hotel and now you're not getting any help hailing a cab or grabbing your bag and lifting it out and putting your luggage in your taxi. So the whole tipping culture has created almost a problem because a lot of people are depending on their only way of getting income is from the tips. then it's almost like a, what's the word for it? It's a bit of a, it's kind of like a trap in a sense that if they're not going to get a tip, they're no longer going to provide the service that they're there to provide. So then they become almost like a bad thing at the hotel.
I would tend to agree that the Asian way that you experienced, where everything is included, I think that would be the better way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that there's no expectations, there's no awkwardness as well. I think the fact that most people would be more genuine in their acts.
That's what it was. This guy in Singapore, that was a genuine act when he asked to take my bags.
To serve you. He takes pride in his job.
Yeah.
And that's a nice thing to see. Whereas you're right, if you are in New York City or whatever city it might be, and someone is trying to suck up to you to get a big tip, then yeah, you can sort of see through that and see that they're not being genuine, that they are expecting to receive a tip. And if they don't get a tip, then they're going to lose interest in you pretty fast. And that sort of comes back to what we kind of talked about previously about making assumptions of people. Let's say if you're wearing sloppy clothes or whatever, a bellman or whoever it might be might make that assumption that, oh, this guy's not really probably worth spending much time on because, I'm probably not going to get a big tip out of him.
Right. Well,
these days, geez, you don't know who makes what kind of money.
Sure.
You could be a millionaire and you're just wearing cargo shorts and a t-shirt, but if you don't look the part, then someone may not spend that much time on you or pass judgment thinking that you're not worthy of their time because of what you may or may not represent in terms of a tip.
So I have a friend of mine who is a notorious tipper, American friend. And this guy I've watched tip everybody, from the person that helped him load the furniture into his car at the furniture store to an usher at a Broadway show who took us to our seats and he handed them like a $5 bill for taking us the seats. And I thought that was a little bit odd.
Yeah, I mentioned before there's a level of awkwardness, and the is there an expectation, or you're right, are there times when tipping is overboard or to the point where because it becomes too much of a thing where someone might be showing off?
Is it a power play?
It could be, yeah. Yeah, Mr. Big Shot handing out the bills.
Or buying somebody's
is it for show?
Respect, or buying somebody's service. So I'll give you another example. Same friend. We went to Beijing together, and the first night we were there, he always makes a point of getting to know the concierge. And what he does is on the first night, he'll drop like a $50 tip to the concierge and say, what's your name, sir? It's Samuel. Samuel, we're going to be here for a couple nights. You're going to be able to take care of us, right? Yeah, yes, sir. And then he would pass him the 50. And normally you tip when you leave. So the impression was, there's more where this came from. So that night we saw him and we saw the concierge and we asked for a dinner recommendation for the restaurant, a restaurant nearby. So he gave us one and we went, and it was actually not very good. And then when we came back that night, he wasn't there. And so we asked the front desk, we said, is Samuel around? And they said, Samuel's off until next Wednesday. So Samuel was gone. He gave him $50 and that was the end of that.
Yeah. So Samuel enjoyed his time off then, huh?
That's right. He probably left the job.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's a classic example where, if you're quick to bring out the dollars to try to curry favor with someone, then, does it really get you anywhere?
Well, and I had when I was in Europe once, in Prague, actually, this was the first time I went to Prague, my mother would tip all the waiters and the taxis and everything. And my uncle, who was from there, he said, don't do that. Then they're going to expect to get tipped all the time. And I've heard that actually, that Europeans actually get angry that tourists tip because suddenly now it's created an expectation of tipping in the European culture. So that's starting to become a lot more prevalent now, is that there's an expectation of tipping in a culture where what didn't already exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I go back to what you said about the alcohol. Why does someone, cracking open a beer, putting it down, suddenly I should be giving him 50 cents more because he did that, or $1 more?
Yeah.
What about the guy that gets a coffee, makes me my barista, my cappuccino?
Mm-hmm.
I've tipped at Starbucks before. I see the little thing, I'll throw in 50 cents or $1 or something like that. So I have tipped.
But it's weird. You mentioned about tipping at Starbucks. So there's maybe an expectation that, okay, some people may tip at Starbucks, but you don't see anybody tipping at a Tim Hortons or something like that.
Or McDonald's.
You would never tip at a McDonald's. So
Yeah.
why am I tipping at Subway? Why are certain places now jumping on the bandwagon where people should be tipping? And
Yeah.
I think people do tip more frequently than what they probably should. And it also comes down to, with everything going on with COVID, people have been eating takeout food more often. So in my experience, when I pick up takeout food, I typically don't tip because it's takeout.
When you pick it up?
I'm picking it up.
If they deliver it, do you tip the delivery man?
Yeah, I will tip a delivery
Or a
guy for
woman?
sure. Yeah, I will definitely tip, whether it's...
But a pickup for takeout. Now, that's actually another point, is that we had a place up the street. I've only seen this, I haven't noticed this before, but have you heard of it where they'll add like a hospitality charge, which is supposed to be like a COVID relief sort of thing? Like help those in the hospitality industry who are suffering by paying an extra 15% to support the hospitality industry. Have you seen that on any bills?
I haven't, no.
Yeah.
But if there is, that should be optional.
Well, and that's the thing. This
Yeah.
particular establishment didn't tell you about it until you looked down at the bill and said, "Oh, what's this?" And he explained it, and I'm like, well, I'm
Yeah.
not going to tell him to take it back, but this kind of pisses me off a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we finish off on our celebrity who
Yeah,
fuck cares.
let's do that.
Okay. I've got a couple, and you've got a couple.
Yeah, I like this topic because, as our listeners know, we for the longest time we talked about weird news stories, which is great. But yeah, I get a kick out of going on certain websites. Yahoo is a website that's terrible for just useless, ridiculous headlines of news that really is so insignificant.
Yeah, all
And
right. What do you got
I'll share one right here.
Yeah.
Ariana Grande just shared a rare glimpse of her natural hair without extensions. Like, again,
Wait,
why...
repeat that again?
Ariana Grande just shared a rare glimpse of her natural hair without extensions.
That is definitely newsworthy.
Maybe if you're an Ariana Grande fan, you might have...
Isn't it Ariana?
Ariana, I don't care. Might have an interest in what her hair looks like, but I can
Without
assure
extensions.
you, without extensions. But I can assure you that 99% of the population do not
Doesn't
care.
fucking care, right?
Yeah. Kim Kardashian has failed her law exam a second time, and just got the results on camera.
Got the results on camera. What does that mean?
Well, okay. Well, let's.
She's she's in
I
a
should
bikini.
point out that the photo is her on a bikini.
In a bikini,
in a
yeah.
bikini top. So maybe that's why there is interest in this particular photo.
Yeah.
I'm sure nobody cares about what the law exam results
So
are.
she's trying to get her law degree.
Yeah, but again, why is this news?
Now, is
that
it the law degree, or is she trying to pass the bar, or what's the...
I don't know, and I don't really care. Again, why is this news? Why do I care about...
But that's
Kim
the thing, we talked
Kardashian
about
and her
this.
law degree.
People do care about this, because why would they make these articles if people didn't care? We don't care.
Yeah.
Our listeners don't care. All right, you got any more?
Okay, well, Mike and Karen Pence just bought a $1.9 million home in a ritzy Indiana neighborhood. Well, good for them, but why do I care?
Yeah, and it's, these
Yeah.
topics amid what's going on, like, do we need to hear about this? Is this
Yeah.
what people want to have this rubbed in their faces?
Well, and the other thing, too, is that, and I think we talked about this before, with a lot of these headlines involve the royal family, especially the whole Harry and Meghan saga. And Harry and Meghan introduced the Queen to baby Lily over a video call.
That's news?
Yeah, again, why is this news? Why do we why do we care? It's a family issue. Again, why do we care about this?
Oh, here's a good one. Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck are cuddling up at an amazing $19 million. I don't know if it's the house or if it's a resort. The headline's cut off here. I don't have the full headline. But again, okay, they're in an amazing $19 million home or resort. Do we really need this? People going through tough times right now, and I don't know. Maybe they get some kind of like solace out of reading of these types of stories where people are happy.
Yeah.
Pregnant Shawn Johnson shares sweet maternity shoot with daughter. Do you know who Shawn Johnson is?
Isn't she a gymnast?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
You always know these things.
I don't know some of this useless information. But I don't care about Shawn Johnson in her photos.
Daisy Fuentes, Richard Marks, sell in Malibu, buy $9 million Hidden Hills mansion. Who fucking cares?
Gwen Stefani is feeling loved as she celebrates bridal shower with family.
No.
Why do we care? Like, it really is incredible the amount of useless information that is posted on some of these websites. But it's obviously there for a reason because people click on it, and I guess we're all kind of guilty of clicking on some stuff where there's a guilty pleasure or whatever.
Ben Affleck shares Mother's Day tribute for Jennifer Garner. Got any more? Oh, I think we did this one before. Princess Charlotte is dad Prince William's lookalike in new 6th birthday photo. I think we covered that one before.
Yeah.
Well, that's our Who Fucking Cares episode or segment. Hey, look, I'm glad we did this. The live episode in your backyard here in Whitby, Ontario. Face to face, our first time. 50. Well, you and I have done like 40, probably like 35-ish episodes.
Yeah,
this is the first time it's face to face. So good to do this. Much easier, much more laid back feeling to me.
Yeah, very much more laid back, very much more conversational. And yeah, I'm sure our listeners will hear noises in the background. There's kids a couple of houses down. There's a dog barking back there a little while back.
Oh, I see a trampoline a couple doors down. Now, there's some that would say a trampoline's a little bit, I don't know, brings down the neighborhood a bit. Does it bother you?
No, they're actually not on the trampoline that often. So I think it's all right.
I guess it's better than a pool.
Yeah, sure.
Splashing and yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
Do you have any pools in the area?
There's one about 2 houses down.
Do you hear them a lot?
No, not really.
Are they ever in it?
Yeah, sometimes. There's kids in it. But.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, till next time, we'll say goodbye here from Whitby, Ontario, Canada. Signing off.